Welcome back. It's a screenwriter's journey. It's day 67, more than on our final third to 100. Will we get there? That's how I ended yesterday. Cliffhanger. All right, so let's see what's going on today. I'm looking at right in the beginning of Act 2, which, of course, according to my favorite book, Save the Cat, is fun and games, and the B story, which can be a love story. It could be a buddy story. Um, and when I was writing this, fun and games, I guess by the very nature of the name, it can be the most fun parts to write. And as Blake says in the book, it's typically where a lot of the scenes from the trailer comes from. And that's not always true, but when you think about it, it's sort of where sometimes a lot of the big action set pieces will take place, and because things are really rolling now that you're into Act 2. The fun and games in this, I guess I'd have to analyze that. Oh dear, I just realized I spelled Paul Atwell two different ways. Let me fix that real quick. Okay, that didn't take long. I went back to the actual script and there was only one occurrence of it. So, the fun and games in here, and as he says in the book, it's not necessarily literally fun and games. It's just where a lot of stuff happens. Speaking of which, see that phone number that Abby gives out? I don't use the word hate much, but when people use 555, it just drives me crazy. It looks like I deleted it because I won't need that anymore, which is good. But I never like to use 555. I think it just screams, oh, this is a movie, which of course it is, or a TV show. But anyways, I was talking about fun and games and then the B story. And so what is the B story here? Because we've got Holly, who goes off and then comes back. So it's basically Holly, Gary, and Abby. And then we've got Rachel, Larry, and Lexi. So we've got, and then, a little bit of this, a little bit of that as it goes on. But so those are basically the two branches of the tree, if you want to look at it that way, that we're dealing with in really the first half of the second act, right up until the midpoint, and even beyond that. So, the fun and games, again, it's not literally fun and games, but it's just seeing that happen, having Holly come back, watching Gary and Abby, and then, of course, Paul has, not an insignificant part in that. But I don't know, because I think their traditional way would be if Larry, which he does, he goes with Lexi and then they end up liking each other. And I generally have a hard time in movies. I mean, romantic comedies and love stories, obviously people fall in love a lot faster than they do in real life, except for The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. But I just, unless it takes place over months, I just always have a hard time, getting people to the place where they're romantically involved. Of course, they could sleep together or something stupid like that, but it just seems so unrealistic that I guess I'd have to look back at my scripts that I've written and not sold to see what I do about that. But in general, I guess I take maybe a more realistic view that it's not going to happen. And especially because this script, it doesn't take place in real time, but it basically, it starts off in the past, obviously, and then there's the day of the big findings, and then the rest of the script takes place from basically 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. So really less than 12 hours. To me, those are generally easier scripts to write. I don't know, maybe not. I mean, like the TV show 24, obviously that was crazy, but that's a whole different thing. But having things take place over longer periods of time, it can be kind of a struggle because every time you establish a new scene, without a title coming on that says 1 week later or something like that. Although, I mean, I've written plenty of scripts like that, and you have to find creative ways to show how much time has passed, short of snow or the autumn leaves or whatever. I'm not even talking about the script today. But the point is, what is the point, Jack? The point is the fun and game section. So we've got two competing stories. Oh, what I was going to say is that you might expect, Larry and Lexi, because of the circumstances, they end up romantically involved. And I mean, I didn't consider it seriously, but I thought about, oh yeah, well, he could kind of inadvertently, not on purpose, steal Lexi away, quote unquote, from Gary. But that whole idea of, stealing a girlfriend is a kind of sexist, and stealing a boyfriend is sort of the same way. So I didn't go down that path. So there's really not a love story in this. You could say in a very small way it's not a love story, but, between Holly and Lexi, just the realization on Holly's part really about her feelings for her. So I hope you're reading what I'm writing and listening to me, because I have completely strayed away from the topic. But that's what makes this series, A Screenwriter's Journey, so popular. That's why, look at all those views. Look at all the shares and likes and subscriptions. It's unbelievable. Not really. So I'm just touching up the dialogue here. Obviously, there's that thing about Justice Martinez when Holly sort of comes clean, which at some point she had to, although she's still, telling little white lies about how long she can stay and why she came back and all that kind of stuff. She just has a hard time letting anything out that's going to make her seem weak. And I don't know why this would really make her seem weak, but she thinks it will. So Gary, yeah, I didn't look to see if this is like new writing. I think it kind of is. Yeah, I like that I like it. Patting myself on the back. We all know whose fault it is. So he's kind of coming clean at that point. Not to say, well, no, he's saying whose fault it is Holly's in his opinion. Sorry. So he really, I mean, I don't know that he needs to take he thinks he's to blame, culpability. That's the word I was going to use. So they're in their car, they're going away. And then I think I mentioned before in the airplane, the thing about, can you use Wi-Fi on a private plane? Yes, you can, as long as the pilot says it's okay. You made the might decision. Oh, great, Jack. See that typo on 42? Holly's line. I hope I fix that. So what happens here, obviously, is that Paul has called Holly and told her that the kids are leaving. And so some people might question, why would he call her and let her know? Excuse me, I think it's because he had he had told her that he would kind of let her know what's going on. And he was referring to Lexi and Larry, but, it could extend to these people. So, yeah, so this right here, for the record, I left under protest. Off the record, my Washington's flight's been delayed. I've got 4 hours to kill. That was one of those things where, of course, as I've said before, you don't purposely write by dialogue, hopefully not. But I don't know, it's not really on the nose, I guess. I don't really love it 6 weeks later looking at it. My Washington flight's been delayed, so I've got 4 hours to kill. So this is obviously her opening, her excuse for coming back, whereas we all know the real reason. Let's see. Yeah, I left it the same. That little airstrip. If you want to pick me up, I'll take you back. And so she's basically, soft selling it that I can come back and see what I can do, which that part is true. And the part about why she's coming back, of course, is not exactly true. So, hold on here. Are you kidding, Gary? Come on, you cheapskate. I don't think that line is going to survive the next draft. What do you think? Comment. If you see any really horrible dialogue, sorry, I'm batting a fly away from the screen. If you see any horrible dialogue, please make a comment and say, Jack, you really need to change this. I may not, but at least you have had your say. If you see any brilliant dialogue, please comment on that. And then if you want to buy the script outright, get in touch with me and we'll negotiate your sanity. So Abby brings up this interesting point that why did she call us to have us pick her up instead of Paul? So Gary hadn't thought of that that's one of those things. I could just say Gary shrugs, but I thought, even though it's a little bit of editorializing, that Gary hadn't thought of that might give the actor the idea of kind of the reaction instead of just shrugging, because the shrug can only go so far. All right. So, excuse me. Gosh, it's so crazy how after 9:30 I start yawning, and I promise I'm not tired. I'm not bored of my script. The pilot is making it clear that he's not in on this fake story of her having 4 hours to kill. So he's basically wondering what's going on, and that's kind of telling the audience that she, in fact, hasn't had her flight delayed. All right, so we pretty much bop to the airstrip, and she comes back. Oh my gosh, I just yawned again. I'm so embarrassed. Yeah, Abby says thank you, and Holly says I haven't done anything yet, and Abby says I don't know about that, which kind of has a double meaning. I love double meanings and subtext when it works and it's not forced. And then Paul calls. Gosh, it's so funny. Paul calls. It rhymes and yet it's hard to say. And she immediately tells him a little fabrication of the truth, and the kids can hear, so they know that she's lying to him. They pretty much would guess who she is talking to. So I worked on this section quite a bit. As you'll see maybe today and in subsequent days, the whole reason, the whole kind of justification of how to get Holly up there, because, it's one of those things, like I've talked about, everyone knows that she's going to go up there and play a major role in whatever happens. So you could come straight out and say it, and boom, she goes up there and whatever happens. But it's a little more interesting to, try to get creative and come up with something that works for the story, good old reveals character, blah, blah, blah. So she's lied to a couple different sets of people, not lied. I guess she has lied. And so she's come back, and Paul's given her the opportunity to go up there, and she has to make it seem like she's kind of on the fence and not really too excited about it. But she really, now that they sort of have this lead of where the helicopter might have gone, she wants nothing more than to get up there and find out what's cooking and see if she can help. So that's pretty much it. Okay, I apologize. I admit I was watching a football game and I just turned it off because I realized I wasn't doing myself justice and I was cheating you out of my expert commentary. So I'm paying full attention to this now. Okay. So I have to make it up. I guess everything's made up, but at some point, um, Holly's got to start telling the truth because otherwise she's going to be kind of a creep. So now she at least is telling them the truth about why she is doing what she's doing in terms of going to Washington and working for the judge or being on her security detail. And then this leads into the conversation, which I think has happened here and there throughout the script, but now I think I kind of condensed it to this scene, and Gary is sort of getting on her case in a way, and it's really not so much getting on her case as kind of trying to make her feel bad a little bit. And, either well, you can read the dialogue, either that Paul guy, blah, 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 blah. And so he's pretty much saying, at least in his mind, what he thinks that she is thinking, if that makes sense. And she's saying, and he's saying it out loud. So, yeah, all this stuff. And then Holly, of all the things she could say is, you think I'm pretty? And Gary gets embarrassed by that. And then this part is problematic when his reply and what Holly says after all, because she's not really quippy. I'm trying to keep the quips to a minimum. Larry probably is the quippiest person. I think Salerno a little bit. I'm trying not to have Holly be kind of flippant and that sort of thing. But I mean, at some point you really kind of have to because people love that snappy dialogue. She and Hogan, when they get into it, so to speak, and maybe she and even Noble a little bit. But yeah, I'm not super big on that flippant dialogue, although I use quite a bit of it. So, yeah, that dialogue that's at the top of the page right now, I'm not in love with. But then Holly makes what's sort of a joke, but what she's saying about the parachute is that, yeah, you're too chicken to do that too, and that upsets Gary, of course, and then sort of puts him back in his place. All right, so now Salerno, we're seeing in person, I think for the first time, this is basically the midpoint of the script, isn't it? Because the script's like 109 pages. So yeah, we're knocking right on the door. So as we all know from reading Save the Cat and Save the Cat Strikes Back and Save the Cat Goes to the Movies and probably a lot of other screenwriting books and methods, whatever. I wonder if there's a method for writing novels. I don't think there probably is, at least not as structured as this. Anyways, halfway through the script should be a false victory or a false defeat for your protagonist. So I will leave it to you to figure out if you think there is a false victory or false defeat, and then B, what it is. And can there be two of them? Can Lexi and Larry's story have one on one branch, and can Holly's and the kids have one on the other branch? Think of what is happening around these pages, and does it represent a false victory or a false defeat? I'm not going to say because I don't want to ruin the fun for you. And I guess I would have to analyze a little bit more. But I think it's hopefully pretty clear. Okay, some not really virgin writing. Well, a little bit. I don't know. I guess if the scene already exists and you're just changing the dialogue, that's not really virgin writing. I wonder if anyone's ever used that term before. Maybe I'll patent it. I don't think I could. Trademark, register. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. How long has McDonald's used that slogan in that music? I bet close to 20 years. It's crazy. Because they used to change all the time. Just like all the others. So they get up there. They're in this Motel 6 room. And there's a misunderstanding about who's going to stay there. Because, of course, Holly doesn't think she's going to. So I'm adding I guess I sort of missed the scene where they arrived and Noble talked to them. But that might need a little massaging, too. I do like that. They get the VIP treatment, and then Abby hears it and says, that sounds promising. And then, boom, we cut. That's the classic, not really an editing technique, story technique. Kind of pull the rug out from under your characters and your audience. Yes, I just yawned. So I guess this isn't a big thing. And the idea that they've got a TV in there where they can watch what's going on. And I did add the part about them IDing them, which I think would be a viable thing because they haven't seen the kids, of course. So what I was thinking is, would the FBI, I mean, they wouldn't have a file on, I guess, who would they have to talk to have like a file and pictures of Lexi and Larry? They might have Lexi because of, I don't know if they would or not, being in the witness protection, and WITSEC, if they would have records on her, if the U.S. Marshals would have shared it with them. Certainly Larry, I guess, social media probably. The point is that I needed I thought it'd be kind of cool if Gary and Abby kind of saw what was going on. They don't see a whole bunch because all they can see is the outside of the building, because I took that body cam bit away, which I'm glad I did. Because I think, I may have not even mentioned this, but it's probably apparent if you've been reading and listening through the last couple passes of this draft, that early on, Rachel was really playing back and forth the FBI. Was she double-crossing the mob? Is she doing whatever? And I think it's more clear now that her allegiance is pretty much with Salerno, and she doesn't have, it's a very declarative statement, but I don't think she has any deal with the FBI, does she? At one point, Larry, speaks about it and tries to make it look like she does, just to mess up Ace and Clyde, but I think I cut that out and tried to simplify that a little bit. Wow, while I've been talking, I've been trying to fix the script here. Gosh, I could have sworn I just wrote this line of dialogue 5 minutes ago, unless she's going to say something different. How suspenseful. What do you think she's going to say? Guess. If you guess, I will give you a prize. You could just write your dialogue that you would write in the comments. But the whole reason, and I wasn't even paying attention because I was talking about something else, but the whole reason that they go up there, because Paul had said, you have to be up there in 30 minutes or they're not going to include us. But trust me, I think I came up with something better in subsequent days. But maybe not. Maybe you think this is awesome. Let me know after you've subscribed and watch The Key on Amazon Prime, which, according to them, no one's watched in the past 3 months. I think something's fishy. They must have gotten jealous of all my minutes. Yeah, this is pretty lame right here that I'm working on this dialogue. So basically what he's saying is, we didn't see anyone go in. For sure, we don't know who it is, so maybe you guys can help us ID them. Oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. Remember positive ID, because that may come into play later. And even if you've been hanging with me and seen this, What I'm saying is something is probably going to change. Gary Knotts cuts himself off. Oh, I'm done for the day. I thought it was a longer day. I must have been talking longer than I thought. Anyways, day 67, not a ton of progress. I wrote for quite a while that day, but I don't know, a lot of tweaking and fiddling, and we'll see how successful it is. Some days you finished and you just have that feeling that, wow, that scene is going to work. It's 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or that sequence is going to work. And you kind of like go, oh yeah, baby, I am a good screenwriter. And then one of two things can happen. You can come back the next day and go, wow, that sucks. Big eggy weggies. And your good feeling goes away. Or you come back the next day or whatever, if you've given yourself a break, and you say, wow, that is spot on. And then you're empowered and excited to continue writing. Sometimes you just write to get through it because you got to write the next scene and the next scene, or you're never going to get done. Tip for new screenwriters: if you don't write, you'll never write. Thank you. Patent pending. All right. Thanks again for joining me. Screenwriter's Journey. I will stop right now and see you tomorrow.